Hey everyone, the COVID-19 has got my brother, and it's been a hard couple of weeks. Going to be another hard week, I'm sure. Um, he's in the hospital. My brother has advanced Parkinson's disease, and something that we did not know is that people that have Parkinson's disease, and especially advanced Parkinson's, that they can kind of be a carrier for almost a week or more before they have the actual sickness symptoms. And what I mean by that is, for people that have Parkinson's, their symptoms that they are already experiencing get twice as bad. They sleep more, they shake more, they have tremors more. My dog is on the bed and she is bouncing around. And my brother was going through all of that, and we didn't know. We just thought he was having, a bad day, more than one. And then my nephew lives with him, and he was sick. He got tested first and came back positive, so they kind of isolated at their house. And we were, I've been running groceries and doing porch drop-offs for him. And what I remember the most about all of this is there's my brother, because they're on such high levels of amantadine and I cannot say that word, carbidipolose something. The levels are really high, and because he's advanced, my brother's been dealing with this for 22 years that it's been diagnosed, but about 25 years altogether. And the high levels of mantidine period, is also used to treat the flu. Sorry. She's rolling around on the bed with a ball. So my brother kept running around saying, oh, he can't get sick, he can't get sick. Yeah, and when I did start to read and hear about people with Parkinson's disease, that it hits them harder. It hits them almost twice as hard. So especially if they're elderly or they're in more advanced Parkinson's. So my nephew got sick first. He felt like a cold, and then the next day there was a cough, and he said his joints ached all over. And then he was very tired, extremely sleepy, and he lost his taste and smell. And my nephew is a big guy, and he drinks only Dr. Pepper, a lot of it, and he wasn't even drinking that. He said it didn't taste good to him. So that's a first in years, but he has recovered and is doing much better. He had a fever for about a week, had a nasty cough he developed, and he just did a whole lot of sleeping. So he has recovered. Now, the second week after my brother slept and was shaking really bad, more than normal, that was the first week. The second week, my brother started experiencing extreme fatigue and sleeping hours, 10, 12, 14 hours at a time. And he was shaking so bad that he was not even getting up out of bed. And again, this is where my brother's Parkinson's is on some days. They can't give him any more higher levels of the medicine to work. It just, he's at that point where that's where it is. So when my nephew tested positive, we had my brother go test, and my brother still was assuming that he didn't have it. He just must have got the flu. Now, the day my nephew's test came back positive, my brother tested. I tested because my brother had been around my dad, and then I was around my dad. So we were playing tag to stay away from each other, try to help each other, but stay away from each other, and then kind of just hanging out in quarantine a little bit. So my brother, that second week, started having a lot of joint aches, and he started throwing up, and he was in bed for several days, so he had nothing on his stomach. He was doing dry heaves, and it was lasting like 4 and 5 hours at a time. So I went and got him half a pharmacy, everything that I could, and dropped it off, did another porch run, and some of the medicine seems to help my nephew, but it didn't help my brother. So my brother got tested, and he continued to go out, going to buy the grocery store, the gas station for snacks, and, you know, just, he's one of those that just thinks it's not that bad. And he was the first one that we all said, because he wouldn't even wear a mask right when he was out in public, he wouldn't cover his nose. Because he was on such high levels of amphetamine, he couldn't get sick. Well, he called me, it was about a week ago, because I'm his #1 emergency button on his cell phone, and I could just hear him struggling to breathe, and I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "No, I need help." I said, are you having problems breathing?" And he said, "Yes." So I said, "Sit down right where you are," because he almost passed out. I had to call my nephew because he was sleeping in the other side of their home. Woke him up. He went straight to his dad and saw the condition he was in and dialed 911. That night, we got told that he was on the tube air that goes in the nose, 4 liters. So the next day when I called to find out how he was doing, they told me he was on 15 liters. By that night I called, they said he's on 20 liters. And the tremors were really bad. And then all he was doing was sleeping. And that his liver levels were starting to elevate. The next day, I get a phone call that he's on the highest amount of oxygen that he could take in, and it was at 40 milliliters. And by later that night, I get a call that he's on the 40 liters, and, you know, he's starting to deteriorate pretty fast. In the morning, they said that he is now on 55 liters because they had that 40 liters with this one, and then they put a mask over their face, which gives them 15 liters more of oxygen. So now he was at 55 liters, and at that point, that was the highest that they could give him. And the levels and his markers, his blood gases, and his different levels and stuff that they were testing were just really deteriorating. So they called and talked to all of us, and because at this point he was kind of getting where he was confused. I wouldn't say delirious, but just very agitated, which Parkinson patients, once they get the COVID, that's the other sign. They get very agitated and just don't have the patience at all. And he was like that. So they said they needed to put him on to intubate him and put him on a breathing machine. And he kept saying he didn't want it. But then they asked him if he knew what day it was, and they were doing the questions to find out if he understood what was happening to him and where he was at. And he believed that he was in hell, and that he didn't want to go on a machine because we were trying to tell him that they would give him some medicine so he could rest and get some sleep, and that he would wake up feeling better. And he said, because he knows he has the Parkinson's too, so he said he was in hell, and he didn't want the machine if he was going to wake up and it was going to be like this. But he just it was just back and forth for a little while, but he ended up going on the machine. And then they called us, this was 2 nights ago, and said his levels are getting worse. They're almost at the max points where even the machine wasn't helping him. So they have to put him on a paralytic instead of having a normal sedation. And it was because he's Parkinson's, so he has tremors and he can't control them, and his whole body shakes. So they had to give him a paralytic to paralyze his muscles so they weren't working in trying to get oxygen. So the air that he was breathing was solely for his lungs. Excuse me. And they said, you know, they kept calling me, can we do this, can we do this, can we do this? Yes, yes, yes. So yesterday we got the call that there was really nothing else that they can do. They were going to try and flip him on his belly so his lungs would have maybe a little bit more room to expand, to see if that would help him. And that's how we left the phone call last night. And that if it didn't work, if it wasn't better, that we would have to get together and make the decision this morning about turning the machine off on him. And so I called, it was like early in the morning, and they said, no, he didn't get flipped. So I'm thinking either something, miracle happened, because that's what the doctor said at this point. It's going to take a miracle for him to be able to survive this. So this morning, the doctor finally called me and said, well, last night, the two markers that they're looking for is the blood gas and some TH or HEST or some kind of level, and both of them were right there. But one of the tests went 1/2 of a point in the right direction, like maybe he could start getting better. So instead of flipping him, they waited to see. But when they went in this morning to check on him, he was, this is the critical care doctors, pulmonary doctors, both of those markers were 5 points and more in the wrong direction. And we got told today that even a healthy person that ended up on COVID and ended up being intubated, if they had levels like this, they weren't going to survive. So if, you know, that was it. And then at 10 o'clock, they did flip him to see if that helped any. And then by the time they did their rounds and did all whatever they had to do, and they called, you know, my nephew already heard, I was with him, we were sitting outside, and he heard the message about that level getting better. So then when the doctor called and said, no, it's not, you know, I saw the look in his face and the tears, and he's 21. He's never had to deal with this kind of thing. So, you know, we had to come together and say they do this laying on the stomach part 16 hours at a time, and that after the 16 hours, they're going to retest again and see where his levels are. So instead of just saying, you know, shut the machine off, I really pushed, don't shut the machine off, give him those 16 hours and retest, because they're still his kids. And I firmly believe that if there's any chance, they need to see it through, because I don't want them to go their whole life thinking, you know, well, what if I pulled the plug too soon? What if he did have a chance and we didn't give it to him? I forgot one part. They did a FaceTime call with us, with him, before they intubated him. And it was hard. It was hard knowing that he's there completely by himself. And, you know, nobody can be there. So palliative care called us today to want to know that if we wanted to do a FaceTime while he was taken off of the oxygen. He would be asleep, so he wouldn't, you know, he's not going to wake up. But we'll deal with that tomorrow. Wasn't ready to say that tonight, and I just want to make sure that my niece and nephew are okay with this decision. So I don't want them to live with that what if forever. So now it's going to be somewhere between 2 and 4 o'clock when the 16 hours are up. And then they flip him back over. Then they will test his levels again 2 hours after they flipped him over. And then we will see. They tested his levels tonight, but they didn't call us. And then they'll test him again in the morning, and then we'll make the decision then if there has not been any type of improvement that they're going to turn the machines off. So COVID is real, and It's not a joke. Wear your mask, people. Stay safe. Have a good night. Bye.